The world ended not with a bang, but with silence. In the beginning, no one noticed. The sun rose like every other day. The cities buzzed with life. Children laughed. People hurried to work. The world felt safe. Then the silence came. It started in small places, a town in the north, a village near the sea. Suddenly, all the people were gone. No noise, no signs of struggle. Just empty streets, empty homes, half-eaten meals still on tables. The news showed pictures of empty cities. Reporters whispered about disease, about attacks, about mass disappearances. Then the sky changed. Dark ships appeared above every major city, blocking out the sun. They floated there, silent and cold, like giant tombstones. At first, humanity waited. Maybe they came in peace. Maybe they wanted to talk. World leaders sent messages, offered meetings, begged for dialogue. The aliens, known later as the Varnak, said nothing. They answered with fire. Energy beams fell from the ships, turning buildings to ash, vaporizing anything that moved. Within hours, entire cities were erased. No warning, no demands, no mercy. It was not war. It was extermination. They didn't want land. They didn't want resources. They wanted humans gone. The world fought back, at first. Jets scrambled into the skies. Missiles were launched. Tanks rolled into burning streets. Nothing worked. The Varnak's technology was beyond anything humanity had. Their shields deflected missiles like raindrops. Their weapons melted steel like butter. The leaders of Earth gathered for an emergency meeting. They argued. They panicked. Some suggested surrender. Some suggested hiding. Few suggested fighting. But it didn't matter. The Varnak weren't listening. In less than a week, over half of Earth's population vanished. Cities that had stood for centuries became graveyards. And the rest of humanity, they ran. They hid. The Day of Silence became the name for what happened next. One by one, communication stopped. Radios went dead. Phones stopped ringing. The internet went dark. The world fell silent. It was as if Earth itself had stopped breathing. Only small pockets of survivors remained, hiding deep underground, in forests, in broken ruins. Among them was a man named Marcus Hale. Before the silence, Marcus had been a soldier. After, he became something else. A protector, a fighter, a spark in the darkness. He moved carefully through the ruins of New York, once a city of millions, now a tomb of ash and broken glass. Beside him walked a young woman, Dr. Sarah Kent, one of the last living scientists. Her face was pale, but her eyes were sharp. "This way," Marcus whispered. They moved through an abandoned subway entrance, down into the cold, forgotten tunnels below the city. There, hidden from the eyes of the Varnak ships, a small group of survivors waited. Children, elders, families who refused to give up. Sarah looked around. The smell of fear was thick. The air was heavy. "We can't stay hidden forever," she said. Marcus nodded. "I know. But if we fight," Sarah whispered, "we must fight smart. We must fight different." Marcus looked at the frightened faces around him, faces that had lost everything. He clenched his fists. "We will," he said. "We have no choice." Above them, the world was dying. The skies were burning. But below in the darkness, a different fire was starting. A fire of anger. A fire of hope. A fire that would grow. Because humans had a gift the Varnak didn't understand. Resilience. They could be beaten. They could be broken. But they could not be erased. Not without a final fight. Late that night, Marcus gathered the small group. He stood before them, his voice low but steady. "They think we are finished," he said. "They think they have silenced us." He paused, letting the words sink in. But they forgot one thing. He looked at the small children clinging to their mothers, at the old men sharpening sticks into spears, at the broken, battered survivors who still breathed. They forgot that silence is not surrender, Marcus said. It is preparation. A soft murmur ran through the crowd. We are not dead, he continued. We are waiting. And when we strike, he promised, we will make the stars themselves shake. The survivors raised their fists, their voices rising for the first time in days. No longer silent, no longer broken. The day of silence was over. The day of reckoning had begun. The world had become a graveyard. But under the ashes, something still burned. A hidden flame. Deep underground, in tunnels older than memory, the survivors gathered. They lived in darkness, ate little, spoke in whispers, but in their hearts, a new fire was growing. Anger. Marcus Hale stood at the center of the largest underground shelter. The walls were cracked, dripping water. The air smelled of old smoke and fear. But the people gathered around him were changing. They were no longer just survivors. They were becoming soldiers. Sarah Kent moved among them, checking supplies. Her hands were steady, but inside, she fought fear. They had few weapons, old rifles, homemade bombs. Nothing compared to the Varnak's energy shields and death rays. But Sarah had something the Varnak did not expect: knowledge. In a dark corner of the shelter, she had built something new. A weapon humans had only dreamed about. The solar lance. It was small now, just a prototype. A device that could focus the sun's energy into a deadly beam. If it worked, it could pierce even the Varnak ships. If it worked. Marcus knelt beside her as she worked. Is it ready? He asked. Sarah wiped sweat from her forehead. Almost, she said. But one shot is all we'll get. Marcus nodded. One shot is enough, he said. Because one shot was all they needed to remind the Varnak. Humans were not finished. That night, the first meeting of the resistance took place. Men and women, young and old, gathered around Marcus. Some wore pieces of old army uniforms. Some carried hunting rifles. Most carried nothing but rage. Marcus spoke simply. They killed our families, he said. They burned our cities. He paused. They think we will stay hidden. Silent. Broken. He looked at every face in the room. But they are wrong. A murmur of agreement filled the space. We are not here to die slowly, Marcus said. We are here to fight. Cheers broke out, quiet but strong. Sarah stepped forward, holding the solar lance device. We have a weapon, she said. A way to strike back. She explained how the weapon worked, and the risk. It would need to be placed close to a Varnak ship. Close enough to be seen. Close enough to die. Silence fell again. Then a young man stepped forward. His name was Leo. He was only 17. But his eyes were hard. I'll do it, he said. Marcus smiled sadly. You will not do it alone. The plan was simple and mad. They would wait for the next supply ship. The Varnak used these ships to gather human resources, food, metal, even bodies. When the ship landed, Marcus and a small team would attack. While the Varnak defended the ship, Leo and Sarah would sneak close enough to fire the solar lance. It was risky, deadly, but it was a chance. And for the first time in weeks, hope filled the underground halls. Children began to laugh again. Old men sharpened blades with trembling hands. Mothers taught their children how to hide, how to run, how to fight. The hidden flame was growing. The day came quickly. Marcus stood with his team near the broken remains of an old factory. In the sky above, a dark shadow grew larger. The Varnak supply ship. It hovered for a moment, then landed with a sound like cracking bones. Doors opened. Varnak soldiers marched out. Tall, armored, cruel. Marcus signaled. The attack began. Homemade bombs flew through the air. Bullets rang out. Screams filled the empty streets. The Varnak fired back, their energy weapons cutting down fighters like grass. But they were distracted. Behind the chaos, Leo and Sarah moved silently. They crouched behind rubble, crept through broken walls. Closer, closer. The solar lance was heavy in Sarah's hands. She found a spot, a broken rooftop with a clear line to the ship's energy core. She set the lance, powered it up. The hum of the machine grew louder. The Varnak noticed. A group of soldiers broke away from the battle, racing toward them. Now, Leo shouted. Sarah pressed the trigger. A beam of pure, burning light shot from the lance. It hit the Varnak ship's core dead center. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the core cracked. A deep, terrible sound filled the air, like a giant heart breaking. The ship exploded in a ball of fire and light. The shockwave threw Leo and Sarah to the ground. Marcus saw the explosion from the battlefield. He roared with joy. The Varnak soldiers stumbled, confused, afraid. For the first time, they retreated. The humans had struck back, and won. That night, back in the tunnels, the survivors celebrated. They sang. They cried. They remembered the dead. Marcus stood before them, a rare smile on his face. The Varnak thought we were finished, he said. But tonight, we showed them. He raised a fist. The flame still burns. Cheers echoed through the tunnels. In the darkness of Earth, the hidden flame had become a fire that would soon burn across the star. Victory tasted sweet, but it came with a price. After the destruction of the Varnak supply ship, the resistance became a real threat. For the first time, the aliens realized humans would not die quietly. And the Varnak wanted revenge. They sent more ships, more soldiers, more death. Cities that had survived the first attacks were crushed. Safe zones became battlegrounds. Blood was spilled on both sides. The war was no longer one-sided. Now, both Earth and the Varnak's colonies felt the fire of war. In the underground base, Marcus Hale gathered his team. He stood before a cracked, dusty map of Earth. We cannot just defend, Marcus said. If we wait here, we die here. The survivors listened in silence. We must hit them where it hurts, he continued. Not just here. Out there. He pointed to the sky. The plan was daring. Infiltrate a Varnak colony on Mars. Destroy their fuel supply. Send a message. They would show the universe that humanity could reach beyond Earth. And strike back. Sarah Kent worked night and day repairing the solar lance. The explosion had damaged it, but she refused to give up. This is not just a weapon, she said to Leo. It's our voice. It says, we are still here. Leo, now a symbol of hope among the fighters, volunteered for the Mars mission without hesitation. I'm not afraid, he said. My family didn't die so we could hide forever. The journey to Mars was dangerous. A stolen Varnak ship, barely patched together, carried Marcus, Leo, Sarah, and a few brave fighters into space. As they flew through the blackness, Earth grew smaller behind them. Leo stared at it through the window. So beautiful, he whispered. So broken. Sarah touched his shoulder gently. We'll fix it, she promised. The ship shook as they entered Mars' thin atmosphere. Landing was rough, a crash more than a landing. But they survived. Broken, bruised, but breathing. The Varnak colony on Mars was cold, harsh, and built like a fortress. Tall metal towers, sharp energy fences, flying drones patrolling every inch. Marcus studied the defenses. We go in fast, he said. No noise, no mistakes. Under the cover of Mars' red dust storms, the humans moved. They crept through dark alleys. They hid behind supply crates. They avoided drones by inches. Finally, they reached the fuel depot, a massive structure pulsing with blue light. Sarah set up the solar lance. This shot, she whispered, must count. But nothing ever goes perfectly. A drone spotted them. Alarms blared. Varnak soldiers poured into the depot. The air filled with the sharp sound of alien weapons charging. Protect Sarah, Marcus shouted. Leo and the fighters formed a wall around her, firing old rifles and throwing handmade grenades, bullets against lasers, bravery against cold, merciless machines. The battle was brutal. Humans fell. Varnak soldiers screamed. Blood, human red, and Varnak green, stained the red ground of Mars. Sarah locked the solar lance onto the fuel tanks. She fired. A beam of pure light smashed into the depot. The blue fuel inside exploded with a roar that shook the ground. Flames rose high into the thin sky. The shockwave knocked everyone off their feet. When Leo opened his eyes, he saw chaos. The colony burned. The Varnak ran in panic. For the first time, their cold, perfect world was bleeding. Humans had hurt them, badly, and the whole universe would hear about it. The survivors limped back to their stolen ship. Only half of the team made it. Marcus, his arm broken, helped carry a wounded fighter aboard. Sarah, pale and exhausted, clutched the smoking remains of the solar lance. Leo, blood on his face, stared back at the burning colony. He raised a fist in silent victory. They had done it. They had made the enemy bleed. And they would do it again. Back on Earth, the news of the Mars attack spread quickly. Through underground radios, secret messages, whispered stories. The humans have reached Mars, people said with awe. They are fighting back. The resistance grew stronger. More survivors joined. More weapons were built. More hope filled the darkness. But hope came with a price. The Varnak were furious. They prepared something terrible in return. Something that would make Earth's skies burn like never before. And in the quiet before the next storm, Marcus stood before his people and said, "This is only the beginning." The flame was now a wildfire, a fire that would not be put out. Not until freedom or death. Victory always comes with a cost. And now, the cost was knocking on Earth's door. The attack on Mars had hurt the Varnak deeply. They had lost soldiers, fuel, and pride. The Varnak, who thought themselves gods, had been wounded by humans, simple, weak humans. And gods do not forgive. Above Earth, the sky turned dark once more. Hundreds of Varnak warships gathered, blotting out the stars. Their anger was cold. Their revenge would be worse. In the underground shelters, Marcus Hale watched the skies on an old flickering screen. Beside him stood Sarah Kent, her face pale with worry, and Leo, silent and tense. "They are coming," Sarah whispered. Marcus nodded. "And this time, they are not here to scare us," he said. "They are here to end us." The resistance scrambled to prepare. Traps were set. Weapons were loaded. Every man, woman, and child knew their job. There was no running this time. Only fighting. Only blood. The first attack came at dawn. The Varnak ships rained fire onto the ground, destroying forests, rivers, mountains, anything that could hide human life. Cities that had somehow survived the first invasion were crushed into dust. Even the deep underground bunkers shook with the force of the blasts. People screamed. Babies cried. The earth itself seemed to bleed. Marcus led his fighters through ruined streets, dodging falling buildings and burning wreckage. Everywhere they turned, Varnak soldiers marched, hunting them like animals. But the resistance fought back with everything they had. Bullets, bombs, blades, old weapons against alien technology. And somehow, they held their ground. For a while, near the broken ruins of an old hospital, Marcus' team made their stand. They had one final solar lance, quickly repaired by Sarah. This would be their last shot to destroy the Varnak command ship, the largest and deadliest ship hovering above the battlefield. Marcus turned to Leo, handing him a small device. "If we fail," Marcus said, "you know what to do." Leo's eyes widened. He knew what it meant. If the solar lance didn't work, the device would trigger a massive explosion, destroying everything, including themselves. It was a last resort, a price paid in blood. Leo nodded without fear. "I understand," he said. Marcus smiled sadly. "You've become a true soldier," he said. The final battle began. Resistance fighters charged from broken buildings, screaming their rage. Homemade rockets and firebombs filled the sky. For every human that fell, a Varnak soldier fell too. Sarah set up the solar lance on top of a shattered bus. Leo and Marcus defended her with desperate fury. The command ship loomed above them, ready to fire its main cannon, a weapon powerful enough to wipe out half the continent. They had seconds. Sarah powered up the solar lance. It hummed. It shone. The Varnak saw them. Dozens of soldiers rushed forward, energy weapons blazing. Leo jumped in front of Sarah, firing wildly, taking shot after shot. He screamed in pain but did not fall. Marcus threw himself into the fight, swinging a broken metal rod like a sword. Blood soaked the ground, red and green mixing together. Sarah locked onto the ship's weak point. "Now," she shouted. She fired. A beam of burning light tore into the command ship's underbelly. The ship trembled. Fire burst from its sides. Pieces fell, raining destruction onto the ground. But it wasn't enough. The ship did not fall. It only grew angrier. Its main cannon charged, a deep, terrible hum filling the air. Marcus looked at Leo. Leo looked back. No words were needed. Leo pressed the small device to his chest. He ran toward the command ship, toward the death, toward the sacrifice. Time slowed. Sarah screamed after him. Marcus tried to follow but collapsed, bleeding and broken. Leo ran faster than he ever had, dodging blasts, leaping over rubble. He reached the base of the ship. He smiled through the blood on his face. "For Earth," he whispered, and pressed the button. A flash of white light filled the sky. The explosion shook the heavens. The command ship cracked, split apart, and fell burning from the sky. The other Varnak ships, seeing their leader destroyed, broke formation. Some fled. Some fell. Earth roared in victory and sorrow. Leo was gone, but because of him, humanity lived. In the ruined streets, the survivors gathered. They carried their wounded. They wept for their dead. They looked at the fallen command ship and knew they had paid a terrible price, but they had also won a chance to rebuild, a chance to fight another day. Marcus, his face covered in dust and tears, stood with Sarah beside Leo's broken helmet. "He saved us all," Sarah whispered. Marcus nodded. "And we will not waste his gift," he said. Above them, for the first time in months, the clouds parted. Sunlight touched the earth again. And deep in the hearts of the survivors, a vow was made. Never again. Never forgotten. Never surrendered. The price had been paid. Now, the real war would begin. The battlefield was silent. The smoke was clearing. The sky, once black with ships and fire, was now open and wide. Earth had survived. But it was not the same Earth. It was a world burned, broken, and bleeding. And yet, from the ashes, something new was rising. Something stronger. Something beautiful. Marcus Hale stood on a ruined hill, looking over what was once a great city. Now, only bones of buildings remained. Beside him stood Sarah Kent. Her hands were scared, her face lined with grief and hope. Together, they watched survivors crawl out of the rubble. Families, children, old soldiers, people who had lost everything, but were still standing. Sarah wiped dirt from her face and said, "We have to rebuild." Marcus nodded slowly. "Not rebuild the old world," he said. "A new one. A better one. A world where fear would not rule. Where no one would bow their heads again. Where humans would never be anyone's prey again." Across the ruined lands, messages were sent out, not with machines, but by runners, by signal fires, by old radios still crackling with static. "We are alive. We are free. Come and help us build." And people came. from hidden bunkers, from forests and mountains, from the shadows of the dead cities. They came with nothing but broken tools and burning hearts. They came with hope, and together they began the work. The first step was simple: survival. Wells were dug by hand. Seeds were planted in ashes. Shelters were built from the bones of fallen towers. There was no government, no leaders with shiny medals, only groups of survivors working side by side. Marcus and Sarah traveled from camp to camp, helping where they could, teaching people to grow food, purify water, defend themselves. Children who once cried from hunger and fear now laughed as they played among the ruins. Hope was a strange thing, fragile but powerful. It grew faster than the weeds in the broken streets. But Earth was not alone. Far above, among the stars, the Varnak survivors watched. Their empire was broken, their pride shattered, but they were not finished, and they hated the humans even more now. They would return. It was only a matter of time. Marcus knew this. Sarah knew this. Everyone who still had breath in their body knew it. And so, as they rebuilt their homes, they also prepared for the next war. Workshops were built underground, hidden, secret. Weapons were forged from scrap metal and stolen Varnak technology. Old books about science, warfare, and history were pulled from the ruins and taught to every child who could hold a pencil. "Knowledge is our real weapon," Sarah said one night as she taught a group of children by firelight. "And no one can take it from us again." One evening, under a sky full of stars, Marcus called a meeting. Hundreds of survivors gathered around a great bonfire. Men, women, children, the young, the old. The firelight danced on their tired but determined faces. Marcus stepped forward. He held in his hand an old, tattered flag, one that once stood for a forgotten country. He threw it into the fire. Gasps filled the night. But Marcus spoke calmly. "We are not many nations now," he said. "We are not old kingdoms or broken empires." He pointed to the sky. "We are one people, one earth, one future." Cheers shook the night air. Tears ran down faces, not just for what was lost, but for what could be born. The new earth, a world without kings or conquerors, a world where humanity would write its own story with blood and hope. Sarah came up beside Marcus. She held something small, a necklace, simple, with a piece of metal from the destroyed Varnak ship. She handed it to him. "For Leo," she said softly. Marcus closed his hand around it. He felt the weight of it, and the weight of everything Leo had sacrificed. "We will make him proud," Marcus said, and he meant it. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Fields of green slowly pushed through the ash. New towns rose where cities had fallen. The children of war grew into builders, teachers, dreamers. And above them, the sky remained free. For now, they knew new enemies would come. New battles would be fought, but they would be ready. Because Earth had been broken and bled dry, but it had not been beaten. The new Earth was not built on gold or steel. It was built on courage, on sacrifice, on the unbreakable will of humanity. And this time, no one, not even the stars, would take it away. The new Earth grew stronger with every sunrise. Fields of food stretched across the land. Towns buzzed with life. Children played in streets once filled with death. Hope was no longer just a dream. It was real. But hope can make you blind to the darkness hiding inside. And sometimes, the worst enemy is not the one above you. It is the one standing beside you. Marcus Hale stood in the council tent, surrounded by the leaders of New Earth. Maps and plans covered the tables. New defenses were being built. A new fleet of ships was being designed to reach space before the Varnak could return. Marcus smiled slightly. For the first time in years, he felt something close to peace. But not everyone felt the same. Hidden in the shadows, among the leaders, was someone who had lost their faith. someone who believed humans were weak and foolish to fight the Varnak. And that person had made a secret deal, a deal with the enemy. His name was Captain Wren. He had once fought bravely during the Great War, but the loss of his family had broken something inside him. He believed Earth would fall again. It was only a matter of time. So when strange signals began appearing in the sky, Wren did not report them. He listened. He answered. The Varnak were reaching out again. Weak, broken, but alive. They offered Wren something he could not refuse. Safety, power, a place in the new world the Varnak promised to build after Earth fell. All he had to do was open the doors from inside. The betrayal began quietly. Supplies went missing. Hidden weapons disappeared. Maps of secret defenses were stolen. Marcus and Sarah noticed. "This doesn't feel right," Sarah said, frowning as she looked at the missing reports. Marcus agreed. Someone is helping them. But who? They trusted everyone around them. Everyone had fought and bled together. The idea that one of their own could betray them was too painful to believe. And that was the mistake. One night, under a blood-red moon, Captain Wren opened a secret gate hidden in the mountains. A Varnak scout ship slipped through the Earth's defenses. It was small, but deadly. It carried weapons meant to weaken Earth's rebuilding armies. Wren guided them silently to the heart of New Earth. If he succeeded, thousands would die before they even knew they were under attack. But fate has a strange way of protecting hope. Leo's younger sister, Mia, now a young fighter herself, was patrolling the outer fences. She spotted something strange. Lights moving in patterns no human ship would use. Curious and suspicious, she followed. What she found froze her blood. A Varnak ship, hidden soldiers, and Captain Wren guiding them. Without thinking, Mia ran back to the camp. She burst into the council tent, breathless. "Traitor!" she shouted. "There's a traitor." At first, no one believed her. Wren was respected, trusted. But Marcus looked into Mia's tear-filled eyes and saw the truth. He ordered the alarm raised. The camp woke to sirens and running feet. Wren saw the lights flare across the town. He realized his time had run out. He tried to escape, but Sarah and Marcus blocked his way. "Why, Wren?" Marcus demanded, heartbroken. Wren's face twisted in anger and grief. "Because we can't win," he shouted. "You think we're building a future? No, we're building a grave." "You sold out your own people," Sarah said, her voice shaking. "I saved myself," Wren spat. But before Marcus could arrest him, the Varnak soldiers attacked. Laser fire filled the night. The defenders of New Earth fought back with all their strength. Mia, young and fierce, led the charge. It was a brutal, bloody battle. But Earth had changed. Humans were no longer easy prey. They fought with fury. They fought with unity. They fought with hope. By morning, the Varnak ship lay in ruins. The few surviving aliens flowed into the dark, chased by the hunters of New Earth. And Captain Wren, he was captured. He stood in chains before the people he had betrayed. No one cheered. No one smiled. It was a victory, but a bitter one. Marcus faced Wren one last time. "You had a choice," Marcus said. "You chose fear." Wren said nothing, only lowered his head in shame. The council judged him fairly. Exile. Alone. Wanderer of the Deadlands. Wren would live, but never again be part of the world he had tried to destroy. That night, around the fires, Marcus spoke to the people. "We have lost much," he said. "We have lost friends, family, even trust." He looked into the flames. "But we have not lost who we are." He raised his voice. "We are humans. We bleed. We break. But we do not bow. We do not betray. And we do not lose." Cheers rose into the night sky. Above them, the stars watched. And the Varnak, wherever they hid, would soon see. Earth was not the same. The next time they came, they would find a world that remembered the sting of betrayal, and a world ready to fight, to the last breath, to the last man, to the last star. The sky was no longer a place of dreams. It was a battlefield. Above Earth, black shapes moved, thousands of Varnak warships, bigger and deadlier than ever before. They had returned, and this time, they were not here to enslave. They were here to erase humanity forever. But Earth was ready. The new Earth was not the broken world they had found years ago. This was a world of fighters, of survivors, of people who had tasted loss and chosen to stand taller. The final war had begun. In the heart of the mountain fortress, Marcus Hale stood with Sarah Kent, now a general, and Mia, grown, fierce, and brave. Around them, commanders shouted orders. Screens showed the sky turning black with Varnak ships. Weapons, built from human scrap and alien technology, were ready. Earth's fleet, small, patched together, but full of fire, launched into the sky. Old world fighter jets, new world starships, and brave pilots who had trained for this day all their lives. Sarah touched Marcus's arm. "We are outnumbered," she said quietly. Marcus smiled grimly. "We always were." The first wave hit Earth like a hammer. Energy blasts rained down. Towns burned. Mountains cracked. But Earth fought back with everything. Cannons hidden in mountains. Lasers fired from old satellites. Guerrilla fighters striking at Varnak landing forces. It was chaos. It was brutal. It was war. And still, humanity held the line. Above the clouds, Marcus led the first strike team. In a captured Varnak warship, now marked with the symbol of New Earth, he charged toward the enemy's command ship, the heart of the Varnak fleet. If they could destroy it, the rest of the fleet might scatter. Beside him flew Mia in her fighter jet, leading the Air Guardians. Sarah coordinated from the ground, guiding every move. It was a race against time. If they waited too long, Earth would fall. If they rushed too fast, they would die. There was no perfect plan. Only courage. Only sacrifice. The command ship was a monster, larger than cities, covered in thick armor, protected by dozens of fighter swarms. As Marcus's team approached, the sky became a storm of lasers and fire. One by one, brave human ships were hit, burning and falling. But they did not stop. Mia dodged and weaved through enemy fire, blasting a path for Marcus. Almost there, she shouted into her radio. The command ship loomed ahead, a wall of death. Marcus gritted his teeth. "For Leo," he whispered. "For Earth." They breached the outer defenses. Inside the ship, it was worse. Dark halls filled with Varnak soldiers, traps, explosives, nightmares. Marcus's team fought like demons, pushing forward inch by bloody inch. They lost friends, brothers, sisters, but they reached the core, the ship's heart. There, a Varnak warlord waited, huge, armored, hateful. "You are insects," it hissed. "You cannot stop destiny." Marcus stepped forward. "We write our own destiny," he said, and the battle began. It was brutal. The Varnak warlord fought like a beast, throwing Marcus across the room. But Mia, bleeding but standing, stabbed the creature's side. Sarah's voice came through the radio, guiding them. "Hit the weak points. You can do it." Marcus rose, grabbing a fallen Varnak blade. With a roar, he drove it into the warlord's chest. The alien screamed and fell. Marcus stumbled to the ship's control panel. He planted the final weapon, a bomb made from human rage and alien tech. He set the timer. 3 minutes. No turning back. "Everyone out," he shouted. Mia led the survivors back to their ship. But Marcus stayed behind for a moment. He looked around the alien bridge, the cold metal, the stolen glory. He thought of Earth, of Leo, of every soul lost. He smiled sadly and ran. The human ship barely escaped. Behind them, the Varnak command ship exploded in a fireball brighter than a star. Shockwaves tore through the enemy fleet. Without their leader, the Varnak panicked. Some ships fled. Some fired wildly, hitting their own. Some crashed into the oceans below. Earth's fighters pressed the attack. They pushed the invaders back, ship by ship, scream by scream. Hours later, it was over. The sky was clear. The stars shone again, and Earth was free. On the ground, people wept and cheered. They held each other, looking at the sky with awe and gratitude. Sarah found Marcus at the edge of a broken hill. His armor was scorched. His face was tired, but his eyes burned with life. "You did it," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "No," Marcus said, shaking his head. "We did it." Mia stood beside them, smiling through tears. In the distance, children laughed and ran. The future had survived, not because humanity was stronger, but because they had never given up, never surrendered, never forgotten who they were. This was not just survival. This was victory. A victory written in blood, hope, and stars. And somewhere, among the endless skies, Earth's message now echoed. We are humans. We fight. We bleed. We rise. And we are forever.